Okay. I also have a box of the same stuff. So. My story's not about that. All right. It's 1987 in New Baltimore, Michigan. It's about 15 miles outside of Detroit. And it's my first day of kindergarten. Our teacher, Mrs. Greenlee, asked us all to take out a pencil and write down our first name on a piece of paper. I looked up at the long banner of 26 symbols above the chalkboard, the whole length of it. Each of these 26 symbols had a random fruit, a vegetable, an animal next to each of those symbols. I couldn't make sense of what the symbols meant and suddenly noticed all of the other kids were quickly writing down something from one of those symbols up there on their paper. I knew what my name was, but I didn't know what symbols I was supposed to choose from the 26 above the chalkboard. I looked at my neighbor's paper. I started to panic, and that I had nothing written down. So I started to copy exactly what they are writing. Mrs. Greenlee walks over, looking at each student's desk, and then stops at mine. She looks and sees that there are two Shannons sitting next to each other. Prior to this day, my education consisted of my mom and I watching Little House on the Prairie, Laverne and Shirley, Chips, and French-only Canadian Sesame Street, because we live right next to the Ontario border. So the American one didn't come through for whatever reason. So I knew more French, actually. But anyway. I'll never forget what it was. Oh, sorry. Prior to this, it wouldn't be until weeks later that after learning that the 26 symbols above the chalkboard were in fact the English alphabet, that I in fact was not Shannon. So I learned that. I'll never forget what it was like to be in the car traveling down Gratiot Avenue with my mom, looking out the window, looking at the billboards, looking at signs, and looking at all of them and not knowing what the heck they said. And I just remember wondering how everyone understood what it said but me and why I wasn't in on the secret. When third grade rolled around in 1990, I started to develop a severe earaches. I tried to tell my mom how much it hurt each time, but because it was happening so often, she began to think for some reason it wasn't possible and that I was lying for attention. I self-soothe by getting the tips of my ears cold and then folding the inside of my ear into the ear canal, trying to let the coolness somehow get to the middle of my ear. To reach that painful area deep inside where I had a middle ear infection, I would learn later on. Even though these ear infections were relentless and continued for like 2 more years through like 8 years old and 10 years old, I quickly learned not to say anything about the pain anymore or I'd be grounded for complaining. I was the third child, so they were tired by the time I came around. They didn't believe me. By 1993, I started to notice that when people would be laughing at a joke, I wouldn't catch why the joke was so funny. I'd pretend like I understood and quickly would, laugh to catch up and hope no one noticed that I had a delayed laugh because I just wasn't hearing what was going on. When I was tired or hungry, words coming out of people's mouths sounded like alien speech. The beginning and ends of words would drop off, especially if I was in a room with a lot of background noise and the person spoke too fast. My saving grace was falling in love with music. Mrs. Reinhardt, our music teacher, was there for all 7 years of my K through 6th grade experience in elementary. She would push this heavy upright piano down this long hallway to each of the classrooms to make sure that we each got 30 minutes of music. Awesome lady. In 5th grade, she introduced me to this new thing called band class. I was failing a lot of subjects, but music was the one that I was getting an A in. Music didn't use a lot of words. You could sense it, you could feel it, you could be it. I was afraid to ask my parents if I could be in band, so in order to get an instrument, I volunteered to play this huge school bell set that I would take home every day. A few years later, a distant uncle from Iowa came to visit and took me to the side and asked me how I was doing. I whispered to him, "I'm secretly in band class. Don't tell my parents. They'll make me quit." whispered back to me, "I've got a trumpet. My son's going off to college. Do you want it?" I'm like, "Yes!" Hoping my parents didn't hear me. Through the years, I quickly became the best trumpet player in class, then in the school district, then the highest honor of making the Michigan All-State Jazz Band. There was only one catch, though. I played the trumpet with such ease and talent for 16 years old, but secretly could not sight read new music because I never could understand how to interpret rhythm on paper and correctly translate it verbatim on the trumpet. It became such an obstacle that my band director intervened, and he got my mom to have me tested by a neurologist and psychologist in 1999. After 5 hours of cognitive testing at the Henry Ford Hospital, I was escorted into a separate room so they could go talk to my mom. I could overhear one of the psychologists tell my mom they didn't know exactly what was wrong, but that it was an unknown cognitive disorder. When I came out of the room, I saw my mom angrily look at me as she ripped this thick envelope from the psychologist's hands. To this day, my mom has refused to tell me what the results were in that thick envelope. Fast forward to 2003, I'm a junior at Central Michigan University as a music major. Take that, Mama. My best friend Sarah and I, we're in an advanced music history class. You have to take 3 semesters of it. We were in the very last one. Our professor spoke really fast, and she had this very thick, beautiful Colombian accent. Right outside the windows of the music building, you could hear our marching drum line warming up with the same cadence that would be repeated over and over, like 1 or 2 clicks faster each time. If you've ever been in band, you know what I mean. And it would just go faster and faster, and it had this thunderous noise bouncing off the walls of the music building, invading our lecture space. Kind of like that. That is like my worst nightmare. Having a class with a train over it. When the drum line would start, I look at Sarah with anxiety in my eyes because I didn't understand anything in the lecture after the drum line would start, practicing outside. Sarah would look at me and she'd put her hand on my desk and she'd mouth to me, "It's okay, just listen. I'll take the notes. It's okay." Sarah was a godsend. As I started to calm down, our professor, in a very fast voice, "Now class, can you tell me where the pickups are in this measure?" I look at Sarah and I quickly write down on the side margin of her notepad, P-E-A-C-U-P-S, question mark, question mark, question mark. Feeling like, everyone yet again guess what's going on. What? I don't understand what's going on. Sarah suddenly burst out a snort and she has tears streaming down her face, trying to hold in the laughter and not interrupt class. I'm completely confused why she's smiling and crying, trying to hold it in. She looks at me with this face like, "Oh, hon, poor thing." Because she knows I innocently don't know what I heard. She then quickly writes down on my notepad, P-I-C-K-U-P, pickup notes. Later on that night, Sarah tries to cheer me up while we're driving in her Chevy Blazer and puts on the radio. It's Stone Temple Pilots' Interstate Love Song. We start singing at the top of our lungs, and I take the bridge, and I sing with complete confidence and certainty, "Feeling like a ham and mustard shake." Sarah looks at me like I'm absolutely nuts. Yet again, I'm the last to find out I've been hearing and singing the wrong lyrics since 1994. We started singing in 2016. Because of the emergence of social media over the last decade, I was able to discover that there are thousands of other people silently suffering from the same weird space between constantly trying to interpret what we hear and then what's actually being said. It finally had a name. Central Auditory Processing Disorder. When the brain can't hear. That it could be caused by things like childhood chronic ear infections, or lead poisoning, or meningitis, heredity, or even a brain injury at any time in your life. Even though there isn't a cure yet, it brings peace finally knowing the why. I occupy this strange space between. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is the beauty of this show. I asked them to say this is a thing. This is the basic description. Take it wherever you want to. I didn't say you have to. I want you to talk about this. I want you to talk about that. And that's the beauty, because then I learned something about each one of them that I really didn't know. And that's the beauty. And really for me to reflect, what are the assumptions, that images about people in our head, right? And there's so much that we don't know, the invisibility, right? And so that's something that we want to pay attention to. What assumptions are we making when we see what's visible and what we don't know about what's the invisible? And so that's what we're going to explore. Thank you, Mac. Thank you so much. How's everyone